Issuing stablecoins is so profitable. That's why PayPal have launched their own stablecoin. Tether is so profitable. It's got about 40 staff.
Yep.
They're making more profit than ANZ, Australia and New Zealand's biggest banks, and they have like 10,000 staff.
Yep.
And yet these guys are just issuing a stablecoin and making more money than them.
Just the clarity around the SEC dropping their cases. They dismissed their investigations into Ethereum. So I think that is going to have massive tailwinds for a lot of things in the Ethereum ecosystem.
Alrighty guys, welcome back to another episode of Tapping into Crypto. My name's Ted and we have the return of Mr. Pav Hundal.
I'm back.
Mate, we missed you. Well,
Thanks.
The audience missed you. I didn't miss you.
Well, I don't think there's an audience, so
Well,
you're lying.
some could argue that. No, look, we had Chris and then we had Tommy.
It's good. You guys did a great job.
Yeah, thank you.
A couple of new segments I saw.
Yeah, I thought I'd introduce a new segment without consulting you first.
That's fine. It's not like you consult me anyway, so.
Yeah, that's true. I just know how stubborn you are when it comes to
so
the
stubborn.
podcast structure. But yeah, man, how you been?
Good. Took a week off, and then the other week I just had something pop up. Couldn't make the potty, but it was good to have a week off, recharge the batteries.
And I saw you, we went to a conference on the Gold Coast where you presented and you absolutely nailed it, didn't you?
Thank you, mate. Yeah, you were there cheering me on. It's good. And by cheering, absolutely heckling the heck out of me.
Yeah. Well, someone's got to do it. Yeah. And unfortunately, you couldn't stay the night at the Goldie, but I managed to sink enough beers for the two of us. So thank you.
Gave it a good nudge, so thank you.
Yes, absolutely. That was a conference with the Empire Crypto guys who will have on
to those guys
in a couple of weeks.
Great event.
But look, we have a big episode today. Obviously, we'll start off with the market update as we normally do, jumping into sort of the top movers and then some key updates that are happening in that space. And then we'll dive into some of the key news that is happening because there is some really big news happening, really impactful on the market. So lots to chat about. So let's get into it. Pav, first thoughts on the market. Where are we sitting?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a few weeks since I've jumped on here and given a market update. So I thought it'd be fitting to maybe just zoom out for a sec before we jump into the charts or start looking at where are we today, specifically on the shorter time frames. But for those people listening at home, we've basically pulled up on the screen here the price performance of Bitcoin since the halving events. So this is looking back at all the other previous cycles that we've had. You know, if we take the day of the halving as day zero, what has been the trajectory for price since that day? And historically, month 4 has been of quite a bit of significance. So we're approaching that one. But it's just to call out with all the inactivity, people calling for tops. I mean, that's all I'm seeing on crypto Twitter. A lot of people angry. To me, that just means people probably have too many altcoins because they're absolutely bleeding. We're pretty much on track for what's happened in the past. Like we have seen Bitcoin almost go stagnant, up or down. We're usually returning back to where it started for the first 4 months since the halving begins. So from about month 4 to month 12 is when things look like they get interesting. So we'll see if this cycle plays out again the same way. But we're going to talk about, I guess, more things throughout the episode that sort of may allude to, why we think this is definitely going to be the case still until proven otherwise.
Yeah, I think the key to highlight here is we are so early. And
still
people think
early.
we've had this recent pullback, like what's happening with crypto. But you look at this chart and you kind of see it's on the same trajectory as it was with all the other cycles post-halving.
You could argue that we're maybe following the 2015-16 cycle a bit closer than the previous one that we just had. Look, it gets you excited, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Look, then we'll jump into some other things. I won't spend too much time in the charts, but the next thing we can look at is just what Bitcoin's been doing. So this is just an update on a chart we've been tracking for months and months now. I think it's been 100 plus days of us going sideways. But we talked about, I think last time I was here was up here when Bitcoin was trading around 70K. And I sort of mentioned that, we're either going to crack through here or we could go all the way back down to 59K. And lo and behold, we had the downside one play out. But I like what I'm seeing so far. We've lost that April low and reclaimed it within a single day. We haven't tracked any lower just yet. I think the next few days will be pretty important. We either choose to hold this current level and start to move above 65K. I think that's the big number we need to see for a trend shift. Or I could see a situation where we come back and just spend a little bit more time, maybe in the high 50s, until we can go higher again. So like we spoke about, we've still got a bit of time before things have taken off in the past as well. So it kind of tells me that I wouldn't be too surprised if things just go a bit boring again. But looking at other macro ways to measure the market, we can look at the total market cap of crypto, which is total, is the ticker you can find on TradingView. Technically at a pretty interesting spot. We've been in this descending wedge now, or this channel I've got here for, again, like over 100 days since March. But we're having a bit of a save on this midpoint, and that's usually something I watch for significance. So now I'd want to see the market cap now start to push to the upside. Again, that could be an early sign that we could be forming some sort of bottom across the market broadly where we are currently. So that's not to say that your favorite altcoin couldn't still go down 20%, but if we're focusing in just on, say, Bitcoin and Ethereum just to start with, we could have seen the majority of the downside selling pressure done.
Yep.
And then lastly, again, probably a bit too much maybe, but a lot of people might be wondering when alt season. We keep talking about Bitcoin's looking okay. When are our altcoins going to go back to where they were? This is a little custom chart I've done up, and I'll talk it through, and hopefully it makes sense. But it's essentially the total market cap of the altcoin market. So that's total 3 is a ticker, but I've minused out the stablecoins out of it. So we're just looking at altcoins only. And I've priced it in Bitcoin. Now, the reason I've done that is because for altcoins to really have a substantial trend, they need to start outperforming Bitcoin.
Yep.
So instead of just measuring things in US dollars, if we measure it in Bitcoin, it's more indicative of, okay, we're going up now, as opposed to we're just going up and down, up and down, up and down. Now, essentially, what we've always had in the past, or I said always, the last cycle, a pretty telling sign of when we started to begin an only up trajectory was when a multi-month low was broken and then reclaimed, and we started to put in some higher highs, some good structure, and we had a clean breakaway. So if we look at 2020, that period was January 21, December 2020, up until about April 2021. And it was after this point that we really started to see some silliness in altcoins. So we had a pretty interesting event 2 weeks ago where we had a similar breakdown of previous low in this chart. So now what I'm waiting for is to see if we can get above this next high, which in this chart, the valuation is about 8.27 mil. And once we get there, I wouldn't be surprised if it just ping pongs for a while, and then we start to move to the upside.
Yeah.
Now that's the bullish scenario. The bearish scenario is that this is just simply it's still ranging. We still come down one more time before we can get higher. And again, we've got so much time left in the market cycle. It's still early days. I'm not sort of saying this is the bottom by any means, but this is a way that I'm conceptualizing where are we on a roadmap for altcoins. And essentially, the simple takeaway here is it going sideways? Is it going up? Is it going down? So even if we remove all the busyness of it being candles, it's still going sideways. So it's not until it's moving, within 4 seconds, you can say it's going to the upside. Am I convinced that we're in an ultra sort of altcoin market setting?
No, this is a really good chart just to visualize, like super simple to understand, comparing where we are now compared to the last cycle where we had that huge altcoin season. So definitely be sure to put it in the show notes so everyone can check it out. Because it's actually quite intriguing.
But that's it for me, sorry. And I'll just finish up. There is
Please.
some key data at the end of this week, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see some volatility towards the back end of this week. And then we have some major news at the end of this month regarding interest rates. So I wouldn't be surprised if July is a bit of a mixed mash of a month. But so far, things are pointing towards things going on track for rate cuts still for the end of this year. So that's a big part of everything as well.
Cool.
And that's me done.
Fantastic, mate. Well done.
Thank you.
I just want to touch on Mt. Gox, which Tommy and I spoke about last week, as one of the key reasons why Bitcoin had that sort of pullback. So a bit of not speculation, it's been confirmed that the Mt. Gox will start distributing the Bitcoin to some of the users that lost to Bitcoin. So there's some supply fears there. What is important to understand is it's not going to all unlock at once. It's going to be gradual. And also, like, you got to understand that BlackRock and Fidelity and some of these other ETF asset managers, they're buying like triple the amount of Bitcoin that even
being produced.
That Mt. Gox even have. So it's not all dire. It's not like 10 or 20% of all Bitcoin is held up by Mt. Gox. It is a significant amount, and it could cause like a slight pullback, but I think the fear of the pullback is probably more drastic than the actual event itself. So just keep that in mind. But also, what did we have last week? We had the presidential debate between Trump and Biden. So we're not a political podcast, but it is relevant in the grand scheme of crypto.
It was also just funny to watch.
It is hilarious to watch.
And pretty sad at the
like
same time.
Watching Biden shuffle out on stage and then Trump sort of just like mosey on about, like not interested. It's just like, what does this country come to? But look, they argued about who has the better golf game, which is
always relevant,
which is very important, of course.
Very important.
I don't think crypto was actually brought up.
Not surprised.
But Trump is widely considered the more positive crypto candidate.
Well, he's taken donations in crypto for his campaign.
Did you see the Kraken CEO? Donated 1 million in crypto. And Standard Chartered, we talked about them last week or 2 weeks ago, launching their own crypto spot desk. They've actually estimated that Bitcoin will hit $150,000 if Trump is elected.
Yeah, okay.
So they're pretty bullish. I mean, they come out with a lot of these predictions. I kind of like that they're putting their neck out there and actually like having a crack, because not many people do that. But it's a pretty ballsy prediction if Trump is reelected. So I don't know if it's not clear whether that's by the end of 2024 or 2025, but they're just calling that. I'd assume it's over the next sort of 12 to 18 months. But at this point in time, pretty much all eyes will be on ETH in July.
I agree.
Because the ETH ETFs are expected to launch in July, even like could be this week or next week. But something we've got to consider is that there's a few things to consider here when you compare ETH to the ETH ETF to Bitcoin. One is a lot of ETH is locked up in DeFi and also staking. So it won't be available for the asset managers to purchase. Two as well, we could also see a sell-off from the Grayscale ETH product, like we did see with the Bitcoin product, because
I'd somewhat expect that,
because Grayscale have the futures product. Is that correct?
I think they've got, like, it's the same way as it's done in Bitcoin. I could be wrong. Probably should have fact checked this before we start talking. But I think it's priced in at a discount. I think that discount's now closed, but there'll be a bunch of people in the last 2-3 months who just all of a sudden, same with their Bitcoin products, it just valued up to par again.
Yeah, exactly. And so they'll look to sell off that and buy one of the other products,
which
because they can claim
cheaper as well.
Exactly, because it's a bit cheaper and they can shave off a bit of profit there. But one thing that I thought was interesting is, we've talked about ETH since they did the merge from proof of work to proof of stake, how it's a deflationary asset. But one thing that I thought was interesting is the last 75 days have actually been inflationary. So like, as you can see, we've got it on the screen. So for anyone listening on, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, they've really dipped in terms of the total supply of ETH. So that's what we call deflationary. But we've seen this uptick in the last sort of couple of months in the total supply of ETH, which is what we call inflation. So this is likely due to people using layer 2s rather than the ETH chain itself. Lack of fees being accumulated on the ETH chain, where people move into layer 2. So that's kind of the main reason for that. Whether it will continue, I'm not sure. The ETFs might have a bit of an impact on that. So just something to call out there. It looks all good for ETH at the moment, but just something to call out that has been inflationary, which is one of the key things that it says, like it's looking to go against.
Yeah, definitely. This is a great website for anyone at home. It's ultrasound.money. If Ethereum had never changed to proof of work and didn't have this mechanism where it burns itself once the network gets busier, the actual supply would be so much higher if it was still proof of work. So I don't think the market's quite looking at prices in the past versus prices in the present. I don't know if it's the same argument anymore. It's not really apples for apples compared to what Ethereum used to be. So it'd be really interesting to see what price action does, if there is any sort of supply shock. Yeah,
and it also compares it to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's actually inflationary. We see
proof of work.
We see new Bitcoin being created through the mining process, and that kind of is halved every sort of 4 years. But it's still inflationary, whereas ETH has actually turned into a deflationary asset. So one interesting thing to call out there.
Yeah, love it.
Right, let's jump into the top movers, Mr. Pav.
It's time.
Finally, a bit of green, hey?
Some green bubbles. We like to see it.
Yeah, so I think the last couple of weeks have just been a sea of red. So we're seeing mostly green. Like there's a few red speckled in there, but it's really positive to see.
Yeah, a couple of recovery rallies. It's been good, and everyone's sort of thinking, oh, what's going to be running next? We've seen meme coins, we've seen infrastructure tokens sort of leading the way. Lo and behold, it's pretty much the same theme still. The biggest bounces when the market started bottoming, as we showed on that Bitcoin chart at the start. It was like Whiff, it was Bonk, it was Pepe, it was all the meme coins were leading the way as soon as the market started to look a bit better.
Yeah, definitely a narrative that's playing out there. We're seeing Whiff and Bonk as two of the key movers there.
Yep.
But then also an ETH ecosystem narrative playing out, no doubt in relation to the ETFs that are happening this month.
And also just the clarity around the SEC dropping their cases. They dismissed their investigations into Ethereum. So I think that is going to have massive tailwinds for a lot of things in the Ethereum ecosystem, because obviously if there's a cloud of doubt around what's the future of ETH look like, a lot of these DeFi projects, they're kind of waiting to see, are they going to be able to operate in certain jurisdictions and stuff like that. Well, it seems like that's become a bit better now. So, I'm talking about Lido DAO specifically, Aave, like things that have been around.
Ethereum name service.
Ethereum name service is doing quite
Maker
well.
as well.
Maker, yep.
Yeah.
Issuing the stablecoins. So it's something I'll be watching pretty keenly,
Yep. For sure, but something that's not in the top movers, but I really wanted to call out as it's got a major announcement this month, Illuvian. So it's one of the key gaming projects that we've constantly talked about. They're a Sydney-based company, but the game is meant to launch. They've actually announced officially.
It's finally happening.
Yeah, it's finally happening. The mainnet launch will be later this month on July 25th, which is probably the most highly anticipated crypto gaming launch in the history of this industry. So this could make or break where the sort of gaming sector goes, because this has been one that's, it actually had a real big pump last cycle when it, released a bit of a trailer, talked about what they're doing, what they're looking like.
Yep.
But because they've been working on the game for so long, it's taken this long to actually launch it. So I think it's positive. They've been developing, they've been hard at work, making sure that everything's in order for it to be a good game that people can actually play and it's functional. So that's going to be huge. I think Illuvium could have a big July in anticipation of that launch.
Yeah, I'm keen to see it.
If we have the Bitcoin ETFs, launch and be successful, then we've got ETH launching this month. VanEck has now applied for a spot Solana ETF in the US, which is pretty major. There was a lot of speculation, like what was going to be the next one, and I think we were kind of calling it for Solana.
I think in our end of year wrap, we said, what do we expect for 2024? And it was a Solana ETF.
Yeah, there you go. How good. So this doesn't mean it's been approved or anything. It just means they've applied for it. And the jury's still out on whether Solana is too decentralized and whether it's commodity or a security. Like I know the SEC went after Binance and Coinbase for listing unregistered securities, one of those being Solana. So this might have a little bit more scrutiny in the approval process. Like we thought Ethereum was going to get denied and then all of a sudden it got approved. So maybe the same is happening for Solana, but I think they're going to have a little bit more of a tough approach with Solana, in my opinion. What do you think? Yeah,
it'll be interesting just to watch it play out. I don't know. The way I think of it is, there's been demand for Bitcoin. We'll see if there's demand for Ethereum. I think if there is, then that sort of sets the tone for, there's demand for diversification and different risk tolerances by investors. So it only makes sense that you'd want to then diversify your risk across crypto. Like you'd want to potentially build because some people want volatility as a part of their portfolio structure. So if you adjust in Bitcoin, you may miss some of that volatility across the altcoin market. So it only makes sense for me that if it's not Solana, it might be something else that just gives people that a bit more volatility in their portfolios through the ETF structures.
Yeah, what I want to know is when are we going to see like a basket of cryptocurrencies as an ETF?
Yeah, I think that should come, right?
Because that is the traditional view of an ETF.
Correct.
It's like you're buying into multiple companies, so you get like diversification across all of those rather than just like a single company, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But of course with crypto, it's like you're buying just Bitcoin or ETH through the stock market, so it's a little bit different in that sense.
And it's good, like just with the versatility of crypto as it does, as it is today. Like us here at Swyftx, we've got the bundles. Like you can sort of access similar products, but you've got to build it yourself as opposed to someone's building it for you.
Yeah, exactly. So it might be a little while before we see that. I don't know if there's like a different approval process for getting a basket. But yeah, I think it's
see.
only a matter of time, right?
Absolutely. I had this one come up that I thought was very interesting. So it kind of, maybe a lot of people missed it, but everyone's been talking about obviously regulation being a big theme this year, especially after the whole FTX debacle and everything else in between, you know, Luna, all that sort of stuff. MICA, so the body in Europe that they've come to a consensus late last month, or I think it was mid last month, of a soft launch of their new regulations, and it starts off with stablecoins. So we're starting to see this come into effect already, and the net result's been USDT's been delisted across a lot of exchanges that provide services for European customers. So
that's massive.
That's huge. Yeah. So Bitstamp, OKX, Uphold, I think was another exchange. From what I can tell, and I'm no expert, it's all about the transparency and the one-to-one backing. The visibility that USDT had wasn't quite up to snuff, so it was not deemed a supported product by the MICA bill, and USDC is. Yeah. So I think that sets up an interesting tone as well, because we've seen in the past that other countries tend to follow where the initial laws sort of instated. So the Europe's sort of maybe the leader in this case here. So if we do see a general theme of USDT maybe getting delisted, if other countries start to enforce similar policies, what does that mean for the markets as well? Because right now USDT is number 3 by market cap, and it's the leading stablecoin. USDT.
Oh yeah, in the whole market, yeah. It's the biggest stablecoin. It's based out of Hong Kong, whereas USDC, the one that got approved, is based out of the US. And I know the US already don't allow USDT, and so USDT was like still the biggest stablecoin because it had markets like Asia and Europe, and even like Australia. Like I know that we use USDT a lot, but yeah, the fact that it's now no longer approved in Europe on top of America means USDC might take over, because they facilitated by Circle, a company that is looking to go public on the stock exchange. They've got strong ties with the likes of Coinbase. So yeah, whereas Tether, the company behind USDT, they're based in Asia, so maybe there's a little bit of scrutiny there. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's just interesting how these stablecoin regulations come about, and how they're enforced. Like, will there be more that are approved, or because there's other stablecoins, right? There's DAI.
They were also didn't meet the criteria, so Frax as well. Yep. So there's a whole bunch of them, and then it sort of begs the question of, okay, we're going down the route of regulation, and we've got, this is centralized exchanges. What about decentralized exchanges? So, would you be potentially penalized, or would those DeFi protocols be penalized for allowing EU participants to interact with USDT? So it's a really complicated topic. I don't think it's going to solve itself quickly, but I do wonder if either USDT changes their mottos and changes the way they do things, or do we just see a complete shift to USDC, and USDT just kind of has this sort of like...
Well, the thing is, stablecoins, issuing stablecoins is so profitable. That's why PayPal have launched their own stablecoin. Yep. We saw Ripple launching their own stablecoin when they've got XRP. Yep. I was talking to someone, and they were saying that Tether is so profitable. It's got about 40 staff, and they're more profitable. They're making more profit than ANZ, like one of Australia and New Zealand's biggest banks, and they have like 10,000 staff. Yep. And yet these guys are just issuing a stable coin and making more money than them. So pretty huge.
Yeah. Be an interesting one to watch play out, but very interesting. What have you got? Some news from Sony?
Yeah, I just thought this was a nice little adoption story to tie us off with. So Sony, everyone knows them as they do everything, but they're actually a major conglomerate in Japan. So everyone knows them for, the likes of PlayStation and a lot of their electronics and things like that, but they own like so many companies, and they've just acquired a crypto exchange, and they've changed the name to S-Blocks, which is a pretty major story. We'd like to see more of the Web 2 companies that are getting into crypto and trying to get a piece of that pie. So they're doing exactly that. They'd actually previously had some crypto ties with the likes of Startail Labs, who are the guys behind Astar Network. So Astar, we've worked with them for a Learn and Earn as part of Swyftx. Yeah, okay. And their CEO and founder has come out and said, one of our external directors is going to be the leader of that crypto exchange that Sony's running. So clearly just, super strong ties between those two companies. Yep. But look, this just highlights that, if Web 2 companies aren't, expanding into either crypto or AI, they're going to get left behind. And so Sony's obviously seen that, they want a piece of this pie. They want to get some, they see it, being a big trend that's going to continue to ride up. So yeah, good on them. And yeah.
Good
but
to
look,
see.
we haven't done the TIC tipping in a while because obviously we had Chris on, we had Tommy on. I thought it was, it would just be simpler to keep it between the two of us. And also, the market was down, so we weren't going to really do well. But look, let's dive straight into it. So we'll start again fresh. Pav, what are you picking for this week? Your 3 picks?
This week is an interesting one because I did sort of speak to earlier that we could see potentially some down or nothing. I'm just going to have to take a punt because I really still want to keep beating you, mate. So I'm going down the route of what I've been observing is, like I sort of said earlier, anything Ethereum related seems to be running quite well in the market right now. So I'm going to be going for MakerDAO. So again, DeFi product on Ethereum. Lido DAO, liquid staking on Ethereum, and Bitcoin. So I'm just going to do an even split across those 3.
Why don't you just go ETH instead of Bitcoin?
I just thought I'd be at least a little bit sensible.
Okay.
Just because I do think, you're right, I could go Ethereum, but I just thought I'd spread it a little bit just in case. But yeah, again, we could end up in a week where we're just going down for the whole week. So
true.
We'll just see what happens.
Yeah, I asked that because I was also looking at Ethereum, but just that grayscale risk there, that there could be an initial sell-off for people looking to, buy another ETF cheaper.
But what about the pre-ETF pump like Bitcoin had?
Yeah, true. But I think we've already sort of had that.
You reckon?
With ETH. I mean, maybe we'll continue. Who knows when, there's a lot of speculation that it could happen this week. So, I avoided ETH and instead I've gone for Sol. Because I think the hype will continue, especially if other asset managers have seen VanEck apply for one. I'm sure others will be quickly looking to do the same.
Yep.
And then I've also gone Pepe because we saw Whiff and Bonk, two Sol memes absolutely running hot, and I think Pepe is a bit of an ETH beta, and I haven't really seen it do much in the last sort of 7 days. So I think it's going to do well if ETH does well. So I kind of want that exposure to the ETH ecosystem. And then lastly, I've got Illuvium because I think that they've now announced the launch of their game. I think there'll be some anticipation. We buy the news, sell the events. And so I think that could play out. So it was a bit of a riskier punt, but that's what we like to do here. We like to keep things fresh. If we were buying Bitcoin and stablecoins the whole time, it wouldn't be very fun.
No, that's the problem, right? I thought about that. I almost did it again, but I was like, nah, let's be interesting.
Yeah, of course.
Let's have a crack.
Of course, these are things we're buying with the Swyftx demo mode. We're not actually buying with our own money, so it's risk free, and we're just having a bit of fun,
a bit of play,
bit of research behind it, but also make sure that you're doing your own research before you actually are making these investments into crypto. But before we go, I want to call out that is tax time in Australia.
Boo.
So end of financial year has just ended. The financial year has just ended in Australia. And so you've got about 3 months to report your taxes. And of course, if you're into crypto, you need to make sure you're reporting your crypto trades to the ATO because it is in a lot of times subject to capital gains tax. In some other cases, it's subject to income tax. But we've got a really good guide that's on tax that we've done with Crypto Tax Calculator, some of our friends in the tax space. So if you want to earn a bit of money, $5 BTC by doing that course, you can do so and also learn a little bit about your tax. And then also we've got a discount code with Crypto Tax Calculator that we'll chuck in the show notes as well. Yep. So you can get a bit of a discount on your tax report when doing that. So make sure to check them out, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Yeah, thanks guys. It's good to be back.
Cool. Bye.
See ya.